one of the things people ask me all the time is, how did you come up with that idea? How do you turn a blank page into a full page? And the answer is there's never really a blank page, because you have so much, you're given so much. In this case, we were given the architecture of the building and the ideas that Spertus had around those of transparency and sharing.
The space itself really stemmed from looking very carefully at the architect's design for the building. We're always taking into consideration the architecture of the space and the light that is coming through this eastern facade.
The magical thing about children is just their imagination. We wanted to create a space that had an equal opportunity for cerebral imagination and physical imagination, so that they would be able to work with their hands and work with their bodies as well as their minds. That there would be quiet space, so we've created a planetarium where it gets really quiet and they can have and it's dark and it sort of feels intimate, and it's a small space for 1, 2, or 3 people, but then also the entire space has a topography to it, and they can travel up and down these hills and jump off the edges of them and have a physical time too, so that we wanted a balance of the two different kinds of activity.
They can actually take over and watch each other also, and have the adults that are coming with them watch them as they will discover what they can do with all the things that we're giving them. So we really wanted to have a space that kind of merged with the architecture. The whole layout of the exhibit is really shaped as a response to the facade and to the space that Crook and Sexton designed for the 4th floor. So when we laid out all the elements, we really took advantage of the geometry that's given by this facade and the angles, whether in plan view or also in elevation, that the facade is taking. So we really shaped the exhibit with this in mind, saving areas for children to kind of take advantage of the overhang over Michigan Avenue and create those spaces that you could call negative spaces between the facade and the areas of our exhibit. And also, what was really important was, as you come out of the elevators, to come into a space that's somewhat darker, mysterious, but you will get drawn to the light coming from the facade of the building. And also with the angle that the facade has vertically, it really brings you up towards the sky, which we thought was a very important element. We know it was going to be about creation and about origins.
But there is always that question that every kid has is, before there was that, what was there? And before there was that, what was there? And before there was that, what was there? And so really came to this idea of like, let's try to answer that question. Let's see what happens if we try to answer that question in this space. So really what the space is a place for children to investigate that question and look at the question of origins through story and the question of how do things get created. And when we began to research that, Odile and I came across this great mystical tradition in Judaism that really everything is created from language, that God didn't create light, but he actually created language which created light. He said, let there be light. And so there's this beautiful tradition that it is language through which everything will be created. And it was that became, I think, the jump-off point for the entire space. So in some of the sites, you have the opportunity to work letters into words, and on other sites you have the opportunity to work words into sentences, and then other sites still sentences into paragraphs and paragraphs into stories, and that's really the basis of the entire exhibit. So as you come through the entryway, you come through a series of tapestries on which we've imprinted some really iconic, doré biblical images that feel really heavy and mysterious, and you hear questions, children asking questions of origin.
Why did we create the alphabet?
How did the world get created?
How did the world get created? How did the world get created? Why are...
But at the end of that hall, you feel the light from the facade. And as you move toward that light and you're drawn toward that light, I think sort of instinctively, you turn left and you feel the wide open space of the rest of the exhibit. And we've divided the space into green on the bottom in a topography. That's shaped, like an undulating earth, and blue in the sky, fabric strips that are hung from the ceiling that create blue for the sky, so that you feel both, that you sort of entered this wide open, really organic, earthy, natural space, earth on the bottom and sky at the top. On the north wall, when you first walk in, there are 26 doors and drawers, one for each letter. When you walk in, I think you're really going to feel the power of the alphabet.
All the letters are heavy. They have weight. They're physical. All those letters will be repeated on the wall, and repeated many times. They will be carved on the doors, and they will also be formed into the material that makes the wall itself, so that people can actually touch them and feel the thickness that they have, the weight that they have, and how they were drawn.
Well, each one of each letter has the opportunity to actually, you can look within it, so you can get past the weight of it to something really light and whimsical. There are spaces that have been designed by individual artists that are just an ode. It's like a poem, a visual poem to that letter.
All the alphabets, the Latin, the Roman alphabet that we are using, and the Hebrew alphabet all have similar origins again, and that each letter actually contains in its history the word from which it originated.